Hey, everybody. Have you ever wondered how a pope is made? As the leader of the Catholic Church, a pope has incredible responsibilities. They must be humble yet commanding, influential yet spiritual. But how does someone get to be the head honcho? Well, with the previous pope either stepping down or kicking the bucket, the race is on for the remaining cardinals of the Church to select the next man who will lead the faith of billions around the world. To do that, they lock themselves in a room without any fancy technology or Wi-Fi. So how exactly does the race to the papacy play out? And is there more to this mysterious selection process than meets the eye? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to look at some of the secrets of the conclave. The term conclave comes from the Latin phrase conclave, which translates to with a key. And that sums up the entire process. Throughout history, conclaves have been held in several different places, but nowadays it always goes down in the Sistine Chapel. Originally built between 1477 and 1481, this church was constructed to serve as the private chapel of Pope Sixtus IV, hence its name. It took just under 4 years to complete, but nowadays it's the centerpiece of the whole enchilada. It's also home to some pretty famous artwork, including Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam painted on the ceiling. These days, the space is used for 5 things: papal funerals, the installation of new popes, the admission of new cardinals, certain consistories, and of course, the papal conclave. When it comes to the actual conclave itself, the purpose is simple: to elect the next pope. Remember, there are other Christian churches besides Catholicism, so there isn't a central council that oversees them all. Instead, the pope is both the leader of the Roman Catholic Church and the sovereign of Vatican City. So when a pope dies or steps down, the whole ballgame changes. In the Catholic world, it is very important to establish leadership as quickly as possible, so the church doesn't descend into chaos. That's why the conclave exists. Now, according to church law, any cardinal under the age of 80 is eligible to participate in the conclave. Currently, there are 220 living cardinals worldwide, though that number is expected to drop in the near future. You see, the College of Cardinals is an elite group, and their numbers need to be limited. That way, they don't end up fighting amongst themselves. The church is already riddled with politics as it is, so keeping the College of Cardinals somewhat exclusive helps maintain order. However, the older a cardinal gets, the more likely they are to kick the bucket. At the moment, there are 127 cardinals under the age of 80. And if any new ones are appointed, they're automatically eligible to vote for the next pope. When the time comes for a new pope to be elected, these 127 men make their way to the Vatican. Once there, they enter the Sistine Chapel and take an oath of absolute secrecy. After that, they begin the process of eliminating anyone else who might be listening in on them. They search for bugs and sweep the room with special devices to make sure they're alone. If any unauthorized people are found, they're escorted out of the building immediately. Even cell phones are confiscated, so there's no risk of leaks. Once the coast is clear, the cardinals lock themselves inside the chapel, and the show begins. Each elector is given a ballot and instructed to write down the name of the candidate they believe should be the next pope. The names are written in Latin, because that's the language of the church, and each ballot contains 2 parts. One section includes the name of the candidate, and the other is reserved for the signature of the cardinal who cast the vote. When everyone is finished, the ballots are counted and checked for authenticity. Afterwards, they're carefully bundled together and burned. Any smoke wafting from the chimney above the Sistine Chapel tells the world whether or not a decision has been reached. Black smoke means no pope has been chosen, while white smoke means the cardinals have unanimously agreed upon a new leader. However, if black smoke fills the air, the cardinals retreat to their chambers for the night and come back the next day to do it all over again. This continues on and on until a new pope is chosen. Now, you may have noticed that I keep using the word secrecy when talking about this process. And that's intentional because secrecy is the name of the game. Not only are the cardinals sequestered away from the rest of the world, but they aren't allowed to communicate with anyone inside either. No aides, no assistants, no servers, not even God. These men are totally alone with only their faith and their conscience to guide them. While no one is supposed to eavesdrop on the proceedings, the ballots are sometimes smuggled out of the chapel and published in Italian newspapers. Over the years, headlines have announced everything from blank ballots to deadlocked votes and even bribes. However, such reports are often dismissed as fake news because no one knows who could possibly be leaking such sensitive information. According to Father Thomas Rees, a senior fellow at the Woodstock Theological Center, it would be very difficult for anyone to leak information about the conclave, but it could happen in a couple ways. First, a cardinal could smuggle a ballot or piece of paper out of the chapel. Second, someone working inside the Vatican could accidentally discover details of the election. And third, someone could be blackmailing a cardinal into revealing information. According to an article published by the Washington Post in 2013, Pope Francis was elected on the fifth ballot. This particular election lasted only a few days, which is quite fast compared to some others. For instance, the conclave that chose Pope Pius XII lasted for 60 rounds spread out over a period of 2 months. On average, however, things are wrapped up within 10 days. So the cardinals are sequestered away from the world for about 2 weeks, just in case. During that time, they're fed 3 meals a day, but the food is kept pretty bland to prevent any excitement. Alcohol is strictly prohibited, as is television, internet, or any other forms of entertainment. Also, since cardinals come from all over the world, they have to stay in hotels in Rome while they are waiting to be locked up in the Sistine Chapel. Because they aren't allowed to discuss the upcoming election, many opt to watch movies together in their hotel rooms to pass the time. But let's say a movie doesn't help. What if a cardinal doesn't want to be part of the proceedings anymore? Can they just walk out the door and go home? Sure, technically they could, but they'd have to resign first. And once they're done, they aren't allowed to talk about what went on inside the chapel. In fact, if a cardinal resigns or dies, they're not even allowed to hold a funeral. Otherwise, someone might learn who the deceased cardinal voted for. And that kind of information could cause massive problems. So far, we've talked about the secrecy surrounding the conclave, but why is it kept under wraps? There are 3 primary reasons for all the secrecy. First, it keeps the process free of outside influences. Choosing a pope is a huge responsibility, and the last thing the cardinals need to worry about is outside pressure. By locking themselves away, they can deliberate freely without fear of repercussions. Secondly, secrecy prevents any form of manipulation. Let's say, for example, that the United States government wanted to install a pro-American pope. Well, they couldn't do that unless they knew who the candidates were. But once the cardinals are locked up, no one has any idea who's leading the pack. And finally, secrecy protects the integrity of the process. With no interference, no lobbying, and no cheating, the cardinals can vote with their conscience clear. There have been numerous instances where popes have been elected with little fanfare. In 1294, Pope Celestine V stepped down just 5 months after being elected. Nobody knows why he quit, but he was succeeded by Pope Boniface VIII. Then in 1303, Pope Benedict Xi died after only 2 years and 8 months. He was succeeded by Pope Clement V. But while it seems like these men gave up or kicked the bucket unexpectedly, there's a good chance the cardinals knew all along who would succeed them. Every cardinal entering the conclave has the potential to become pope, but every cardinal also understands that their chances are slim. Some are well liked. Others are considered too radical or not radical enough. Still, others are simply too old to assume such a huge responsibility. So while anyone can be elected, there's a clear pecking order in place long before the voting begins. When it comes to electing a pope, don't expect things to play out like the movie The Godfather. Sure, there might be some backroom deals and plenty of negotiations, but nobody is forced into anything. Ultimately, each cardinal must live with their decision. That's why the secrecy surrounding the conclave is so important. It allows for open discussions about sensitive topics without fear of repercussions. The cardinals can talk about anything they want, and whatever happens stays inside the Sistine Chapel. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more contents.